CSTEP webcast. Ministry of Mines in Delhi and Center for Study of Science, Technology and Policy in Bangalore have formed a steering committee to prepare a roadmap of rare earth and energy critical elements. They have recently released a report titled Rare Earth and Energy Critical Elements, Roadmap and Strategy for India. Today we have the co-chairperson of steering committee, Dr. V.S. Arnachalam, who is also the chairman of CSTEP, to tell us about the report. Dr. Arnachalam, we understand that this report is part of Rare Earth Steering Committee activities set up by the Ministry of Mines. What was the motivation behind setting up of this committee?
The rare earth elements form an interesting part of the periodic table of elements. We discover the usage of some of these materials as we go along. Remember the 18th and the 19th century, we discovered the use of iron, copper, nickel. And later, just about 30-40 years back, we discovered the usage of silicon and the transistors were born. Now, we are finding that about 15 elements after the atomic number 57 proved to be an extremely interesting group of elements. These are called rare earths. Rare earths are not rare, but the concentration of those elements is very, very low, few percent of it. And these are the elements that are going to make a difference in sustainable energy options that we are looking. They are outstanding in magnetic properties. They have options in batteries. And what we are looking is, how are we going to tap the resource of these materials, considering that few countries that have these elements are starting to ration supply of these elements to other countries.
China's aggressive market strategy led to a global shutdown of the rare earth production. Now, in terms of global reserves and production of RE, where are we and where does India stand?
The total rare earth reserves, global reserves, is about 150 million tons. We don't have very much in India, about 1.3 million tons. And it is in the form of monazite. The trouble with monazite is the rare earth is mixed with radioactive elements like uranium and thorium. So we have got to separate all these elements before we start using rare earth ones like lanthanum, cerium, neodymium and so on. China has not only the rare earths but also the energy critical elements like lithium. And lithium is making such a difference to battery technology, from pacemaker to energy storage and to automobiles. And we find that energy security suddenly has become a major problem because China has started rationing the supply of these elements to other countries. Recently, there was a panic because Japan cried saying that they were not getting the elements that they wanted from China. And China said this, it had to conserve and reserve some of these elements. So I think there is a case for us to start looking some of these elements and start stockpiling for us and for other countries who are not able to get from China.
Historically, which Indian organization has been making the rare earth? And we believe the rare earth production stopped a few years back. What was the capacity that time? And what are the current plans for revival of the rare earth production by this organization?
Indian Rare Earths Limited is a company that was formed in late 40s. The trouble was there was no great deal of market for the rare earth elements at that time. And our rare earths are also, considering we are extracting it from monazite, these are what is called the light element rare earths, very similar to the elements like cerium, lanthanum, neodymium and so on. But the market is also for the heavy rare earths. So these created problems, and the market was not available and market was small, and added to that is China was practically, one could say, dumped these materials at an enviable price. With that result, Indian rare earths stopped producing rare earth metals. We may have to re-look at this now that the great usage for rare earths is opening up in wind power turbines, in hybrid automobiles, and also even in the display systems in the computer.
Given the global scenario that most countries are reviving their rare earth programs, is there a need for indigenization for Indian rare earth program?
Because of our interest to harness rare earth metals, the Ministry of Mines has formed a steering committee just about a year back. These include Indian Rare Earths, Atomic Minerals Division, Geological Survey, Atomic Energy Establishment, CSIR laboratories both in Jamshedpur as well as in Bhubaneswar, as well as there's a Center for Study of Science, Technology and Policy. In a sense, we have a group where everybody has some interest in extraction of rare earth and in its usage. And the usage ones, both atomic energy as well as the hybrid automobile manufacturers are going to be very interested.
So in terms of recommendation, what policy measures this report has suggested for us to ensure the raw material security for India?
The conventional way of providing opportunities will not work in the rare earths. The amount of metals that we will be extracting and using will be in hundreds and perhaps thousands of kilograms, not millions of tons as is in the case of iron or copper and so on. So what we may have to do is to come out with some imaginative options including novel methods of extraction, because the extraction today of rare earth elements is expensive and it is also somewhat difficult. That's what we are concerned about, getting new technology, extraction technologies, or providing an innovative supply chain that will make it possible for rare earth elements to be extracted and used in our country. In a sense, this report is an eye-opener. Watch out, it's very important, rare earths. I believe this will invoke large amount of debates on what we can do with the rare earths and how we are going to do it. And if we can do that, I think the report has achieved its objective.
As we can see, the rare earth and energy critical elements play a critical role in the national renewable energy programs. An uninterrupted supply of these two class of materials is critical for long-term raw material security for India. We thank Dr. Arunachalam for providing us an overview on the National Rare Earth and Energy Critical Elements Program.